Thanks for tuning in to watch The Ordinary Filmmaker once again. It's a cloudy day. Well, it was cloudy, and the forecast says it's supposed to be cloudy at 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, well, basically all the way up to 8 o'clock tonight. That's obviously not the case because there's a big patch of blue sky. And as soon as I sat down, I made sure I got the exposure right. I took it into the computer. I'm right around 60 to 65 IRE for middle gray for me, for my exposure. But I set everything up for a cloudy day. Thankfully, I've left it on auto white balance. I'm fiddling around with it. I normally don't like auto white balance, but being outside, I'm hoping that might help a little bit. Anyhow, enough of my problems of filming. I want to talk to you about market share, the camera market share of the top 5 camera companies according to Nikkei. Hey, just a quick reminder to like and subscribe. Your likes and subscribes show me that you're interested, but it also tells YouTube that you're interested and helps this channel grow. There's some good news, and there's, of course, some very bad news. Now, at the top, we have Canon with 49.7%, and that's an increase of 2.5%. So that's good news for Canon, right? And Sony, well, no surprises there. They're also up 1.9%, so their market share is now 22.1%. But the real big surprise here, we knew that Sony and Nikon were battling it out, but in this new report, Nikon has fallen off significantly. Nikon's now at 13.7%, and that's down a staggering 4.9%. I mean, if they have another 3 years of sales down 4.9%, there isn't going to be a company left. Now, granted, 2020 was a really tough year. I mean, no one's denying that. But the point here is that when people are looking at buying a camera, they're not considering Nikon. They're first going with Canon or Sony, and pretty much that's all that's on people's minds. They're looking at Canon or Sony. And everything else, unless of course you've already got that gear, it doesn't seem to be like Nikon, Panasonic, and Fuji are being able to draw in new customers. And that's not a good thing for these companies. So Nikon is down a staggering 4.9% to 13.7%. Fuji is up a little bit, so not too much going on with Fuji. They're currently at 5.6%. And Panasonic, remember they're below 5%. They're now at 4.4%, and that's down 0.3%. So not a huge drop, but still, it's for a company that's already so very, very low, they're facing irrelevance in the marketplace. To drop another 0.3%, it's rather significant. So no surprises that Canon is king of the hill, and really what's helped save Canon here is the R5 and the R6. Now, while Canon was king of the DSLR with considerably more sales in DSLRs than everybody else combined, when it came to mirrorless, Canon barely showed up. I think they were in 3rd place. Sony was king, but the R5 and the R6 have really helped Canon sell a lot. I think they revised their earnings this year, saying that it would sell an additional 100,000 units, and that's a pretty big deal. But I'd like to use the analogy of swimming in a rip tide. So let's imagine you're down in California or Mexico, someplace where it's warm, and you're swimming on the beach. You got your surfboard, and all of a sudden, you and your friends, your 5 friends, are caught in a rip tide. And your friends are named Canon, Sony, Fuji, Nikon. I know, not original, right? Well, so you all start swimming back to the shore. And you're swimming, you're in the riptide and you're swimming, and it's kind of like that person who's in first place. Their name is Canon, and you know what, they're pushing forward and they're ahead of everybody else. But they're still heading out to sea. The situation is still worse than it was before. You can be ahead of the rest, but in a declining market, this market is down a staggering 40.3% over last year. Canon previously had stated that they figured that the market would drop to something like 5 or 6 million units, and they're happy with it. They can work within a marketplace like that. It's not that they're happy about that, but they said, you know, we can work in that marketplace. Sales for 2020 among these top 5, 8.85 million. Think about that for a minute. Under 9 million units. So yes, Canon is up, Sony is up, and that's good for them, but sales are still down dramatically over 2019. Now, like a riptide, if you're ever caught in a riptide, you don't swim directly head-on into the riptide and head to shore. You swim to the side to get out of the riptide, and then you head into the shore. And it's going to take, for some of these companies, for Canon, they figured it out. They were battling against the riptide, and, well, they weren't even really battling. They were just kind of treading water against the riptide and being pushed further and further out, losing market share. At one point, Canon had something like 63% market share. And yes, that is some time ago. They've changed. They've pivoted. They've focused on mirrorless, and they produced the R5, despite some of the articles about overheating and whatnot, is a very, very solid camera. It produces very, very good results. And the R6 is also a very, very good camera. And so Canon pivoted into mirrorless and produced some really good results, but they need to keep doing this. They need to come out this year. They need to come out with entry-level cameras to replace the RP, because the RP hasn't aged well, neither has the EOS R. And if you want a decent, affordable camera, well, then you're basically looking at Canon's EF line, the DSLR, like the 90D or the Rebel TSI, the T8i. See, I've already started to forget about them. I get it. There is the M6 Mark II, but I'm completely ignoring the EFM line. I really don't believe that's going to be a continuing concern. It is going to be sunset. We've got less than 9 million units sold worldwide, and Canon's going to focus on the R system. They're eventually going to sunset. They're going to stop producing for the EFM. And when's the last time Canon released a lens for the EFM? That should tell you something there too. So we need an R system version of the Canon 90D. There won't be a 100D. Canon's going to come out with a mirrorless version of the 90D, and they need to do that relatively soon. They don't have to do it this year, but for anybody who's looking at buying a camera, they're looking at mirrorless. DSLRs are pretty well done. And would you want to buy the 90D knowing that Canon's focusing on mirrorless? No, obviously not. And we also need a camera that's appealing to those who like the 7D. And we also need a refresh of the EOS R, a camera that's going to sit somewhere between the new entry-level replacement for the RP and the R6, because $2,500 for the R6, and it doesn't even have all eye, is just ridiculous. And it has those overheat modes. So we need to have another camera that comes in, that gives us uncropped video, that gives us 4K, 24, 25, and 30. It does it pretty good. Sure, it can be softer than the R6. There's gonna be some crippling, but there's a huge hole in Canon's lineup on the mirrorless line. And remember, the EOS R is just a mirrorless version of the 5D Mark IV. And the R5 is the mirrorless replacement to the 5D Mark IV. And you look at the capabilities of those two cameras, it seems like the 5D Mark IV is 10 years old. The R5 really, really did jump up and took lead. So all these new cameras coming out from Sony, like the Alpha 1, people are comparing the R5 to the Alpha 1 in a good way, despite the Alpha 1 being $2,300 more. It's because the R5 is, well, while Canon cripples most of their cameras, the R5 is pretty good. It's relatively unscathed. Yes, there's some issues with it. Yes, it doesn't have dual CF Express cards. Yes, it does have overheat modes. It doesn't have proper thermal cooling. And video exposure controls could be, well, better. But they're doing a lot better. And Sony is doing a lot better. And I think what we're going to start to see as the years go by is Sony and Nikon are going to battle it out. They're going to be the two dominant companies in this field. And we're going to see Panasonic eventually exit the market. I think there's a very real possibility that Nikon will exit. And when I say exit, most likely through some sort of merger and acquisition for the patents. But at 4.4% with Panasonic's continuous push of depth from defocus, autofocus, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And I know it works for some, but anybody who's looking at buying into this market, they're looking at the top two companies, and then they sort of look at, well, the other companies, can I save some money? Do I have something pretty good? And it comes down to capabilities. And why are you going to go with a company that's in 4th or 5th place, barely having enough market share, that doesn't do autofocus well, but everybody else does? Well, that kind of tells me do they have the money to develop it? What are the reasons? And it's a red flag. So I'm willing to say this here. I really do believe the days for Panasonic and Fuji are numbered. So Nikon has to make some bold decisions here. They make really good cameras. I like the Z6 and the Z7 Mark II. I like the Mark I's. They're good cameras. They're not feature leading, but they're also not price leading. But I think what's happening here is the market is rewarding companies that are innovative and not aiming for those that are looking for an affordable camera. Look at the R5. It's $300 over the 5D Mark IV when it was initially released, and it's flying off the shelves. Same with the R6. And look at the Alpha 1. It's selling well too, and yet it's $6,500. So I think what Nikon needs to do is they need to borrow from Ford in their bold campaign. Nikon needs to start talking more about their cameras and why they're great. They need to start hooking up with popular YouTube channels and getting their cameras noticed, because nobody's talking about Nikon unless they release a camera. Outside of that, who's filming with Nikon? They need to do something bold, not just with their cameras and innovation, but also with how they appeal to the marketplace. 13.7%, down 4.9%. If that isn't the market speaking, and if you're not listening, it's all over, despite your strategic transformation. And again, Panasonic, I keep looking at that, 4.4%. You've been under 5% for how long now, and you've dropped another 0.3%? It can't keep going on. I really do hope that when they release the GH6, it does have phase detect autofocus. If it has phase detect autofocus, I think that will help. But it isn't going to have 6K. It isn't going to have 8K. And even if you go to the S1 line, you're not going to get 8K. Canon came out with 8K, and everyone's talking about 8K. Sony's now got 8K. And all these new, excuse me, all these new higher-end cameras are going to have 8K. So very interesting here. Again, the highlights, market is down 40.3%. Both Canon and Nikon are doing the best of the bunch, but still, their sales are still down significantly over 2019. And I would certainly chalk this up to extraordinary items, such as, well, the chip shortage and COVID. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Just a couple of notes before I do end off. I left my cap over there just because it's really hot out here and I don't feel like sweating. But don't forget to buy the Ordinary Filmmaker baseball cap for $34.99. If you want to take a look at it, I should be wearing it right now, but like I said, it's too hot. Take a look at ordinaryfilmmaker.com/merch, and you can get one there. And also, don't forget to purchase through my affiliate links. If you're looking at purchasing through B&H and Amazon.com and .co.uk, I get 2% back from any purchase, and I have links to all my videos. And even if the link isn't to a product you want, click on the link and then search for the product you want, purchase it, and I will still get a 2%. I don't want to use the term kickback, that sounds illegal. I get a 2% fee, and that goes into helping support the channel. It really does. It allows me to get new gear. And I love testing out new gear. But thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.